The hammering echoed through the empty corridor of the commercial building on Pine Street, in Portland, Oregon. It was a cold March morning in 2024, exactly 5 years after one of the city's most puzzling disappearances. The construction workers hired to renovate the old psychology office on the third floor had no idea they were about to discover something that would change everything. When Danny Morrison, the chief contractor, began tearing down the dividing wall between rooms 304 and 305, his drill hit something unexpected. It wasn't wood. It wasn't plaster. It was something that made his blood freeze in his veins. "Guys," Danny shouted, his voice trembling, "you need to see this. Now!" What they found in that hidden space between the walls not only solved the mystery of Dr. Jennifer Hayes' disappearance, but revealed a truth so disturbing that it still makes investigators wake up in the middle of the night. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now, because what you're about to discover will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the people who trust their deepest secrets. This is a story about a dedicated woman who disappeared without a trace, a story about a community that lost its faith, and a story about how the most familiar places can hide the darkest secrets. Jennifer Marie Hayes wasn't just a psychologist. She was a beacon of hope for hundreds of people in Portland who struggled against their most intimate demons. At 34 years old, Jennifer possessed a presence that immediately put her patients at ease. Light brown hair always tied in a loose bun, compassionate green eyes that seemed to see directly into people's souls, and a genuine smile that radiated warmth even on Oregon's gloomiest days. At 5 feet 6 inches tall with a delicate constitution, Jennifer compensated for her fragile appearance with extraordinary emotional strength. She had the rare gift of making complete strangers feel understood after just a few minutes of conversation. She was the type of person who remembered the building doorman's name, who always asked about the cleaning lady's grandchildren, and who never went out for lunch without offering to bring something back for her secretary. Jennifer had grown up in Salem, Oregon, daughter of Robert Hayes, a retired carpenter, and Linda Hayes, an elementary school teacher. Since childhood, she demonstrated an insatiable curiosity about how the human mind works. Her parents used to joke that she psychoanalyzed cartoon characters, trying to understand their deeper motivations. After graduating in psychology from the University of Oregon in 2009, Jennifer specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy and trauma. She opened her private practice on Pine Street in 2015, deliberately choosing a more modest building to keep her fees affordable. Therapy shouldn't be a privilege only for the rich, she used to say. Her routine was meticulously organized. She arrived at the office every day at 7:30 in the morning, always carrying a cup of black coffee and a chocolate croissant from the French bakery on the corner. Her first session began promptly at 8 o'clock, and she saw between 8 to 10 patients per day, Monday through Thursday. On Fridays, she reserved time for supervision, studies, and professional updates. Jennifer's office was a reflection of her welcoming personality. Walls painted in soft shades of beige and light green. 2 comfortable armchairs strategically positioned to create intimacy without invasion. Well-maintained plants that she religiously watered every morning, and a small side table always stocked with water, tissues, and mint candies. On the wall behind her desk, framed diplomas shared space with a photograph of her embracing her parents and a quote from Carl Rogers. The most fundamental human characteristic is the capacity for growth. Jennifer wasn't married but had been in a serious relationship for 2 years with Mark Stevens, a history professor at Portland State University. They met in a bookstore at Powell's Books, both reaching for the same copy of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Mark used to say he fell in love with Jennifer the moment she insisted he take the book, explaining passionately why that work had changed her perspective on human resilience. On weekends, Jennifer enjoyed hiking the trails of Forest Park, practicing yoga at a studio in the Hawthorne district, and cooking elaborate dishes that she tested on Mark before serving to friends. She had a small but very close circle of friendships, mainly professional colleagues who met monthly for dinners where they discussed challenging cases, always maintaining patient confidentiality, and supported each other. What most impressed people about Jennifer was her ability to completely separate her personal life from the traumas she heard daily in her office. She developed her own decompression techniques. After each particularly difficult session, she dedicated 5 minutes to deep breathing and positive visualization. At the end of each day, she wrote 3 things she was grateful for in a small notebook she always carried in her purse. Jennifer was also known for her professional generosity. She regularly accepted pro bono cases for people who couldn't afford therapy, especially survivors of domestic violence and war, veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. She was part of a volunteer program that offered psychological support in women's shelters, where she donated 4 hours of her time every Saturday morning. Her patients adored her. In 5 years of clinical practice, Jennifer had never received a single formal complaint. On the contrary, her waiting room frequently echoed with laughter. She had the gift of making people in deep suffering find moments of lightness even amid pain. Many of her patients sent thank you cards during the holidays, and some maintained contact even years after therapy ended, just to update her on their personal achievements. However, Jennifer wasn't naive about the dangers of her profession. She knew that dealing with disturbed minds sometimes meant encountering unstable, obsessive, or potentially dangerous personalities. For this reason, she maintained strict security protocols, always informed Mark about patients who made her uncomfortable, maintained a discreet camera system in the office corridor, and never revealed her residential address. But no amount of precaution in the world could prepare her for what was to come on that fateful Friday, in March 2019. A day that began like any other, but would end by casting Jennifer Hayes into a mystery that would take 5 long years to unravel. And when the truth finally came to light, it would be more disturbing than anyone, including the most experienced investigators, could have imagined. Friday, March 15, 2019. Portland's sky dawned gray, with a fine drizzle that transformed the streets into mirrors reflecting traffic light colors. The temperature read 7 degrees Celsius when Jennifer Hayes parked her navy blue Honda Civic in the same spot as always, space number 15 in the underground parking garage of the Pine Street Tower building. At 7:32, Jennifer passed through the building's reception, greeting Timothy Walsh, the doorman who had worked there for 15 years. "Good morning, Tim. How's your granddaughter?" she asked, as she did every morning. Timothy would later remember that she seemed absolutely normal, smiling, wearing her favorite olive green blouse, and carrying her brown leather purse and the silver laptop that never left her side. As usual, Jennifer stopped at Les Délices Bakery on the corner. Marie Dubois, the French owner, prepared without even asking. Black coffee, no sugar, and a still warm chocolate croissant. Jennifer seemed in good spirits, Marie would later tell investigators. She mentioned she was excited about the weekend because Mark was planning a surprise for her. At 7:58, Jennifer unlocked the door to her office on the 3rd floor. Her secretary, Carol Martinez, would arrive only at 8:15. On Fridays, Jennifer preferred to have a few minutes alone to organize herself before starting the day. The security cameras in the corridor captured Jennifer, entering room 304 for the last time at 7:59. Jennifer's schedule that day included 6 sessions. The first, at 8:30, was with David Reynolds, a 45-year-old accountant, struggling with generalized anxiety after a traumatic divorce. David arrived punctually, but found the office door locked and no sign of Jennifer. He waited 20 minutes before going downstairs to ask the doorman if he had seen the doctor. Timothy Walsh immediately went up to the 3rd floor with David. They knocked on the door several times but got no response. "This isn't normal," Timothy murmured. "Dr. Hayes would never miss an appointment without notice." He used his master key to open the door. The office was exactly as Jennifer always left it. Tidy, welcoming, with the air conditioning on at the perfect temperature. Her purse was on the desk, her laptop open showing her day's schedule, and her coffee cup was still steaming next to the untouched croissant. It was as if Jennifer had simply evaporated. Carol Martinez arrived at 8:15 and found David waiting in the corridor with Timothy. "Where is Dr. Hayes?" she asked, immediately sensing something was wrong. Carol had worked with Jennifer for 3 years and knew her obsessive punctuality. The office phone began ringing incessantly. At 9 o'clock, it was Amanda Foster, the second patient of the day. At 9:30, Michael Torres, the third. Carol canceled all appointments, inventing a medical emergency to avoid alarming the patients, but inside her heart was racing. At 10:15, Carol called Mark Stevens. "Mark, Jennifer didn't show up today. This isn't normal. Did you speak with her this morning?" Mark's voice immediately changed. "No, she left early. She left a note saying she'd call me at lunchtime to confirm our weekend plans." Mark immediately left his university classes and rushed to the office. When he arrived, he found Timothy, Carol, and the morning's 2 patients still, waiting in the corridor, all with expressions of growing concern. The office door remained open, revealing a disconcerting scene. All of Jennifer's personal belongings were there: purse, wallet, car keys, cell phone, but she had simply disappeared. Mark examined every inch of the office. The plants were watered, a sign that Jennifer had followed her morning routine. The computer showed she had checked her emails at 8:02, 3 minutes after entering the room. The last opened email was a dinner confirmation for that evening at a new restaurant in the Pearl District. "She was excited about our plans," Mark told Timothy, his voice beginning to fail. "Last night we were talking about the possibility of living together." Jennifer was radiant. She would never leave like this, without telling anyone. At 11:30, Mark made the decision to call the police. 2 officers from the Portland Police Bureau arrived at the building at 12:15. Detective Robert Chen, a 15-year veteran specializing in missing persons, and Detective Sarah Martinez, a meticulous investigator known for never giving up on a case. Chen's first impression was disconcerting. "In 23 years of career, I've never seen such a clean disappearance," he commented to Martinez while examining the office. "There are no signs of struggle. Nothing is out of place, but she literally evaporated." The detectives confirmed that Jennifer hadn't used any of her credit cards, hadn't withdrawn money, and her phone remained in the office, still connected to the charger she always kept in the desk drawer. Even stranger. The building's security cameras showed Jennifer entering the office at 7:59, but there was no image of her leaving. "We checked all the recordings," Detective Martinez explained to Mark that afternoon. "Your girlfriend entered the office and simply disappeared. There are no records of her leaving by elevator, stairs, or any other building exit." Mark provided investigators with a list of all of Jennifer's friends and family members. Robert and Linda Hayes, her parents, were immediately contacted in Salem. Linda broke down on the phone. "My daughter would never leave us worried like this. Something terrible has happened to her." By late Friday afternoon, the search for Jennifer Hayes had intensified dramatically. But what no one imagined was that this search would take years, and that when the truth finally emerged, it would be more disturbing than any theory they could conceive on that first desperate day. The weekend of March 16th and 17th, 2019 transformed into an intensive search operation that mobilized the entire Portland community. News of Jennifer Hayes' disappearance spread rapidly through social media and city therapist groups, creating a shockwave that reverberated far beyond professional circles. Mark Stevens didn't sleep during the first 48 hours. He organized volunteer search groups that scoured Forest Park, the place where Jennifer used to walk on weekends. More than 200 people showed up, including many of Jennifer's former patients who, while preserving their privacy, wanted to help find the woman who had changed their lives. Detectives Chen and Martinez worked tirelessly, following every possible lead. They interviewed all of Jennifer's patients from the last 6 months, a delicate process that required special care with medical confidentiality. Carol Martinez provided scheduling records, but clinical files remained sealed until a court order was obtained. The first theory was kidnapping, Chen explained years later. An attractive, successful psychologist with no known enemies. Maybe some patient had developed an obsession, or someone who saw her as an easy target for an opportunistic crime. The investigation revealed that Jennifer had been extremely cautious about her personal security. She never revealed her residential address to patients, always parked in the building's basement, and had installed a silent alarm system in her office that could be activated discreetly in emergency situations. This alarm was never triggered on the morning of her disappearance. The second theory focused on voluntary flight. Sometimes apparently happy people are fighting internal battles that no one knows about, Detective Martinez commented. Maybe Jennifer was suffering from hidden depression or feeling overwhelmed by the traumas she heard daily. This theory was quickly discarded. Jennifer had made specific plans for the weekend, including restaurant reservations and purchases of special ingredients for a dinner she planned to cook for Mark on Monday. Her bank account showed no suspicious activity, and she hadn't made travel searches or created alternative identities. The third and most disturbing theory was homicide. Chen and Martinez began examining the possibility that someone had managed to enter Jennifer's office without being detected by security cameras. They studied every angle of the building, every possible escape route. The Pine Street Tower was built in 1987, explained the structural engineer who helped with the investigation. It's a solid building, but has some architectural peculiarities. There are old ventilation ducts, an elevator system that was renovated 3 times, and some spaces between walls that were created during renovations over the years. Investigators discovered that the security camera system had some blind spots, especially in the emergency stairs on the building's west side. Theoretically, someone could have entered and left without being detected, but it would require intimate knowledge of the building's structure. During the second week of investigation, detectives obtained authorization to search Jennifer's apartment. What they found deepened the mystery even further. Her house was impeccably organized, with clothes set aside for the following week, a shopping list stuck to the refrigerator, and freshly watered plants. On the nightstand, a book was marked at page 127. Jennifer clearly planned to continue reading. Forensic analysis of the office revealed no evidence of violence. There was no blood, signs of struggle, or foreign DNA. The fingerprints found belonged only to Jennifer, Carol, Mark, and some regular patients. The complete absence of physical evidence left investigators perplexed. It was as if Jennifer Hayes had been abducted by aliens, Chen commented with frustration after 3 weeks of intensive investigation. People don't just disappear from locked rooms without leaving traces. Media pressure intensified. Local newspapers began speculating about the ghost psychologist mystery. Radio programs discussed conspiracy theories. Social media buzzed with assumptions about human trafficking, secret cults, and government experiments. For Jennifer's family, each day without news was renewed torture. Linda Hayes developed chronic insomnia. Robert began driving to Portland every day, distributing flyers with his daughter's photo in cafes, train stations, and university campuses. Mark lost 15 kilograms in the first 6 weeks and was forced to take medical leave from work. After 2 months of intense investigation, the case began to cool. All leads had been followed, all theories explored, all suspects interrogated. Jennifer Hayes had simply disappeared from the face of the earth, leaving behind only unanswered questions and broken hearts. What no one knew was that the answer to the mystery was literally centimeters away, hidden in the very walls of the office where Jennifer spent her last conscious moments. And it would take exactly 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days for that horrible truth to finally come to light. But when it happened, it would be in a way that no one, not even the most experienced investigators, could have predicted. The years passed with silent cruelty. 2019 became 2020, then 2021, 2022, 2023. Each calendar change was a painful reminder that Jennifer Hayes remained missing, and that answers seemed increasingly distant. Mark Stevens never fully recovered. During the first 2 years, he kept the apartment he shared with Jennifer exactly as she had left it. Her clothes still hanging in the closet, her toothbrush in the bathroom, the book marked at page 127 on the nightstand. His friends tried to convince him to seek therapy, to move on, but Mark lived haunted by the feeling that Jennifer was still out there, waiting to come home. "I woke up every morning expecting to hear the key in the door," Mark confessed years later. "During the first year, I left fresh coffee prepared before leaving for work, just in case she showed up. I know it sounds crazy, but I just couldn't accept that she had disappeared. Forever." Robert and Linda Hayes aged a decade in just 2 years. Linda developed an obsession with television programs about missing persons, religiously watching each episode hoping to find clues about their daughter's fate. Robert channeled his pain into activism, becoming a prominent voice for families of missing persons in the state of Oregon. "We never stopped looking," Linda said, in an interview with a local newspaper in 2021. "It doesn't matter how many years pass. Jennifer is our daughter. Mothers don't give up on their children. Someday, someone will find something. Someday, we'll know what happened to our girl." Jennifer's office remained sealed by police for the first 2 years, then was returned to the building owner. For 2 more years, room 304 remained empty. No new tenant wanted to rent the space where a person had mysteriously disappeared. The owner, James Morrison, admitted that the place gave chills even to cleaning staff. "It was strange to pass by that door," commented Timothy Walsh, the doorman who still worked in the building. "Sometimes I swore I heard noises coming from there, like someone walking or moving furniture. But when I opened to check, it was always empty and silent." In Portland's therapeutic community, Jennifer became an urban legend. New psychologists arriving in the city invariably heard her story. Some colleagues organized an annual vigil on the anniversary of her disappearance, lighting candles, in the Pine Street Tower lobby. Carol Martinez, the former secretary, moved to Seattle in 2021, saying she couldn't work in the field anymore after losing the most incredible boss who ever existed. During this period, conspiracy theories flourished on the internet. Forums dedicated to unsolved mysteries dissected every detail of the case. Some people believed Jennifer had discovered some government secret through a patient and was silenced. Other theories involved international human trafficking, satanic cults, or clandestine medical experiments. One of the most persistent theories suggested that Jennifer had a secret identity and had planned her own disappearance. This theory was fueled by supposed fabricated evidence. Blurred photos of women who supposedly resembled Jennifer in other countries, falsified bank records, and reports of unconfirmed sightings. The conspiracy theories were the most painful part, Mark reflected years later. People couldn't accept that sometimes terrible things simply happen without explanation. They needed to invent elaborate stories because the idea that Jennifer could have been the victim of something random and cruel was unbearable. Detectives Chen and Martinez never officially closed the case, but after 2021, other investigations took priority. Chen retired in 2022, passing the files to younger detectives who reviewed the evidence but found nothing their predecessors had missed. "Jennifer Hayes became my sleepless nights case," Chen admitted at his retirement party. "In 30 years of career, I never encountered anything so puzzling. A person can't simply evaporate, but Jennifer Hayes managed to do exactly that. In 2023, room 304 was finally rented to an accountant who needed a small and cheap space. He remained there only 6 months, claiming the environment was heavy and that his clients felt uncomfortable in the place. After him, 2 more tenants quickly passed through the space, all reporting similar sensations of inexplicable unease. By this time, 5 years had passed since Jennifer's disappearance. Mark had finally started therapy and was slowly trying to rebuild his life. Jennifer's parents maintained a memorial website where they published monthly updates, even when there was no news to report. Portland's therapeutic community had created a scholarship in Jennifer's name for needy psychology students. Everyone had resigned to the fact that the Jennifer Hayes mystery would never be solved. She had become more myth than memory, more legend than real person. People stopped actively speculating about her fate and began accepting that some mysteries simply have no solution. It was exactly at this moment of collective resignation that fate decided to intervene in the most unexpected way possible. March 2024. Exactly 5 years after Jennifer Hayes's disappearance, James Morrison, the Pine Street Tower owner, made a decision that would change everything. It was time to completely renovate the 3rd floor. The small rooms were being difficult to rent, and he decided to transform the space into a large architecture office. Morrison hired the construction company Morrison & Sons, curiously no relation to him, to lead the renovation. Danny Morrison, the chief contractor, was a pragmatic 52-year-old man who had worked on hundreds of commercial renovations. For him, it was just another demolition and reconstruction project. On the morning of March 18, 2024, a sunny Monday that contrasted dramatically with the gray day of Jennifer's disappearance, Danny and his team began working in room 304. They planned to tear down all internal partitions to create an open space. It was routine work, Danny explained later to investigators. Drywall demolition, nothing complicated. I had done the same thing thousands of times before. At 10:15 in the morning, Danny began working on the wall that separated rooms 304 and 305. His electric drill was piercing the plaster with ease when, suddenly, it hit something different. It wasn't wood. It wasn't pipe. It was something that made a muffled and disturbing sound. When the bit hit that thing, I immediately knew something was wrong, Danny remembered. It was a sound I had never heard before, like I was drilling through fabric. Danny stopped work and called his 2 assistants, Carlos Mendez and Jake Williams. Together they began making a larger opening in the wall. What they found on the other side made them recoil in absolute horror. It was a small space, no larger than a closet, that had been sealed between the 2 rooms during a previous building renovation in the 1990s. And inside that space, in fetal position, were the mortal remains of a woman. "My God," Jake whispered, his voice trembling. "There's someone in here." Danny immediately ordered everyone to stop work and called the police. At 10:47, the first squad cars arrived at Pine Street Tower. At 11:15, Detective Sarah Martinez, now a veteran of almost 10 years on the Jennifer Hayes case, ran to the 3rd floor. What Martinez found was a scene that would haunt her forever. In the narrow space between the walls, illuminated by the improvised lights of the forensic team, was a skeleton, dressed in an olive-green blouse. Next to the mortal remains, a partially deteriorated brown leather purse contained a wallet with Jennifer Marie Hayes's identification. "I knew immediately it was her," Martinez said later. "Even after 5 years, even with the state she was in, I recognized the blouse. It was the same one she was wearing in the security cameras the day she disappeared." The forensic team worked meticulously to extract the mortal remains and evidence from the confined space. What they found painted a terrifying picture of Jennifer Hayes's last moments. She had been walled up alive. Preliminary analysis of the bones showed no signs of fractures or injuries indicating physical violence before her death. There was no evidence that Jennifer had been murdered before being placed in that space. The mortal remains were positioned in a way that suggested she had been conscious when she was sealed in the wall. Jennifer's nails were broken, and there were scratches on the plaster walls, explained medical examiner Dr. Patricia Wong. She had tried to free herself. She had tried to scream for help, but no one heard her. Even more disturbing, forensic analysis revealed that Jennifer could have survived between 12 to 18 hours in that space before succumbing to asphyxiation and dehydration. During all that time, she was just centimeters away from people who could have saved her. The discovery sent shockwaves through Portland and beyond. Mark Stevens, who had begun rebuilding his life, collapsed completely. "She was there all along," he cried to television cameras. "During all those years we searched for her. She was there, waiting to be found." Robert and Linda Hayes were simultaneously devastated and relieved. Devastated by the confirmation that their daughter had suffered a horrible death, but relieved to finally have answers and a place where they could grieve appropriately. "Our girl tried to come home," Linda said through tears. "She fought to get out of there. She never gave up, just like we never gave up on her." The discovery immediately reopened the criminal investigation. But now, with concrete physical evidence, detectives faced an even more terrifying question. Who had walled Jennifer Hayes up alive? And why? And the answer to that question would reveal a truth so disturbing that it would forever change how people in Portland thought about trust, security, and the dark secrets that can hide behind the most familiar faces. With the discovery of Jennifer Hayes's mortal remains, the investigation took a completely new direction. Detective Martinez, now leading a task force dedicated exclusively to the case, began analyzing a fundamental question. Who had access to the building and sufficient knowledge about its structure to wall Jennifer up in that specific space? Forensic analysis of the location revealed crucial details. The space between the walls had been created during a renovation in 1994, when several rooms on the third floor were reconfigured. Construction records showed that only 3 people had intimate knowledge about this architectural peculiarity: the original architect, who had died in 2018, the contractor responsible for the renovation, retired and with a solid alibi, and James Morrison, the building owner. But Morrison had also been extensively investigated in 2019 and had an irrefutable alibi for the morning of Jennifer's disappearance. Additionally, he had no apparent motive to harm a tenant who always paid rent punctually and never caused problems. The investigation then turned to a more sinister possibility: someone who had obsessively studied the building's structure. Someone who knew the blind spots of security cameras. Someone who had regular access to the third floor without arousing suspicion. Analysis of building entry records revealed a disturbing pattern. During the 6 months prior to Jennifer's disappearance, one person had visited the third floor with unusual frequency, always using the west emergency stairway, exactly the blind spot of security cameras. That person was Richard Coleman, a 38-year-old man who had been Jennifer's patient for only 3 sessions in January 2019, before abruptly canceling his appointments. Coleman was a civil engineer with specialized knowledge about old building structures. When detectives located Coleman at his residence in Beaverton, they found evidence that froze the blood in their veins. His basement was lined with photographs of Jennifer taken secretly over months. There were detailed plans of Pine Street Tower, including schemes of ventilation ducts and spaces between walls. Even more disturbing, there was an obsessive diary where Coleman documented Jennifer's every movement, from her arrival times to her coffee preferences. "Dr. Hayes doesn't understand what we have together," read a February 2019 entry. "She needs a place where we can be together forever, where no one can separate us. I found the perfect place." The investigation revealed that Coleman had developed a pathological obsession with Jennifer after just 2 sessions. He misinterpreted her professional compassion as romantic interest, and when Jennifer gently suggested he seek another therapist due to signs of inappropriate transference, Coleman saw this as betrayal. For weeks, Coleman studied the building, mapping every entrance and exit, every hidden space. On the morning of March 15, 2019, he entered the building through the west emergency stairway, reached Jennifer's office, and confronted her with his relationship proposal. When Jennifer gently refused and threatened to call security, Coleman attacked her, not to kill her, but to preserve her. In his distorted mind, walling Jennifer up alive wasn't murder. It was a way to keep her safe forever, where she would belong only to him. Coleman was arrested on March 25, 2024, and confessed to the crime with details that perfectly matched the forensic evidence. During interrogation, he demonstrated complete lack of remorse, insisting he had saved Jennifer from a cruel world. "She's at peace now," Coleman said during the confession, his words sending chills through the interrogation room. "She doesn't need to worry about anything anymore. We're together forever." Richard Coleman's trial in September 2024 was one of the most disturbing in Portland's criminal history. Jennifer was portrayed as the dedicated professional she was, while Coleman was revealed as a predator who perverted the sacred therapeutic relationship between doctor and patient. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole for first-degree murder with especially cruel circumstances. The judge declared that the nature of the crime, walling up a victim alive, represented one of the most sadistic and inhuman acts ever judged in this court. For Jennifer's family and friends, closure brought both relief and renewed pain. Knowing she had suffered so much in her final moments was almost unbearable, but having answers finally allowed them to begin the true grieving process. "At least now we know our Jennifer never stopped fighting," said Linda Hayes at her daughter's belated funeral. "She fought until the end, because that was the strong and determined person she always was." The Jennifer Hayes case led to significant changes in therapeutic office security throughout Oregon. New regulations require improved emergency systems, stricter security protocols for therapists working alone, and more detailed background checks for patients showing signs of obsession. Today, a memorial plaque in the Pine Street Tower lobby honors Jennifer Hayes as a dedicated healer whose compassion touched countless lives. The space where she died was permanently sealed and converted into a memorial garden on the building's roof. The case also serves as a somber reminder that the most dangerous predators are often those who hide behind masks of normalcy. Richard Coleman was a respected engineer with no prior criminal history, who transformed a helping relationship into a deadly obsession. For Mark Stevens, who now works as a counselor for families of violent crime victims, Jennifer's memory lives on through his continued work helping others facing traumatic losses. "Jennifer would have been proud," he says. "She always believed that even the darkest experiences could be transformed into something that helped others heal." The mystery of the psychologist who disappeared was finally solved, but her legacy of compassion and dedication to healing continues inspiring a new generation of mental health professionals who work to ensure no other Jennifer Hayes suffers the same terrible fate. Sometimes, the most frightening secrets are literally under our noses, or, in Jennifer Hayes's case, within the very walls that should have protected her.